Last time on the FXNT Create 3 mod pack, we made a factory that turns sand into a lot of different things, including all of the stained glasses, we've got windows, we've got the sandstones, we've even got scorium and scorcher and a whole bunch of bricks. And it works perfectly. It's been running a little while, and it's not gone wrong yet, which is lovely. But it's still not quite finished. Well, the machines are finished, but the factory itself is still pretty bare. We don't even have doors yet, and underneath this factory we've got a big old basement and a llama, apparently. We'll talk to you in a minute. We've got a big old basement that I want to turn into my permanent workshop and storage system. On top of that, there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to do outside as well. I want to finish off this outside area, put railings up and some things littered about the place, and I want to turn this little port into something that's going to be useful to us. And I do have some ideas for that. And I also want to do something with the surrounding area to make this not just feel like it's been stuck here and blend in and have all sorts of other things going on. And that's not all. Underneath of this thing, there's another area where I want to work on, and that's this little platform here, which I want to turn into some sort of underground transport system. Perhaps using hypertubes, or maybe even taking a train backwards and forwards to the nether. Who knows? I don't know yet. I haven't come up with a plan. All I know is I've got a lot of work to do, and I think I'm going to start on, first of all, making the existing part of this factory look a little bit nicer. Oh, and talking to these llamas and this wandering trader. Hello, sir. Have you got anything worth having? You have not. So therefore, I'm going to cut now. Why haven't you cut? Oh, yeah, geez, I normally do this bit off camera, and then just in my next clip, I'm just holding his head as if nothing had happened. Oh, geez, I can't believe oh. And for that, I think we should start with doors, and I'm thinking either copper doors or maybe even these industrial iron doors. I'm not 100% sure which I should use, so let's grab a copper door. Let's also make ourselves some industrial iron ingots, and when we've got those, then we can make one of these industrial iron doors as well. And the reason I'm thinking copper doors is mainly because this building has a very much orange and black theme, and obviously the orange comes a lot from the copper. And I think that works pretty nicely. But before I get carried away and make a decision, what about those? No, I don't like those at all. They look like jail doors. So we're going to have copper doors on here, and I think I'm going to put it there to add even more depth to this building. And then obviously I need one over here as well on this side. And for these ones, maybe I could use the industrial iron doors, but actually no, I think I want the copper. I don't like that at all. Let's get rid of you. And let's just make a couple more copper doors. But unfortunately, these copper doors are not waxed. They are going to end up not looking very nicely at all. They're going to go all green, which won't match this aesthetic at all. So really, we need to wax these doors. However, there are no waxed variants in here, so perhaps doors don't age? I don't know. We'll keep our eye on those. But anyway, one of the things I'd like to make in the workshop is an oxidizing and waxing machine. So I've got that to think about doing later. But before I do that, I think it's time that I made some fences. Now, these are going to be coming around the outside of this walkway to, well, offer us a little bit of protection. And I do like these iron railings, and they go very nicely, but I also quite like the iron bars, the industrial iron bars, and of course I love the andesite bars as well, which do connect. However, if we do want these bars to actually go on the edge of a block, I believe we can do that with copycat panels. If I throw a copycat panel there, and there, and there, and then I can put those in them, and that looks awful. So we're not going to do that. I think we're going to go with the railings. I like the railings. They look good. There we go. We've now done the entire perimeter with those railings, and I think that does make a little bit of difference. Not too much, but it, yeah, definitely adds to it, and I think they go okay in terms of colour. Excellent. But what else am I gonna do? Well, I think it's about time I started considering what we're going to be doing with this part of the building, this bit that juts out. And in the last episode, I did ask for comments on what you guys thought I should do with it. And a lot of you were referring to it as a port, which is basically an import or export part of the building. And I think that makes sense. But when I look at it, I also see something else. I see a garage. And there's only one thing that I think that could go inside of this garage and would make sense. We're going to need a little ramp to come out, and then the thing that we can build in the garage can drive around. And the thing that I think makes sense is, of course, my tunnel bore. However, this tunnel bore is too big. It's not going to fit in there. It's also incredibly ugly. So I think we should make a tunnel bore that looks like it's born of this building, lives in here, and then we can have a ramp and we can literally drive the tunnel bore out of here and take it mining. And this time I want to build the tunnel bore a bit differently. See, I normally do it with a minecart and some rail and a little thing behind it to pick up the rail. But I'd rather make one that I can drive like a train. So I'm going to, now spend a whole bunch of time trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to make a tunnel bore on a train that works and can live inside of here.
A few moments later.
Well, things with this are not going particularly smoothly, and I'm now starting to regret the decision I've made to make that a garage for a tunnel bore. The reason being is because this is the only space we've got to work with. We have a 9x9x5 area that the tunnel bore has to fit in. That's everything, including all of the drills and everything like that, and also behind the drills I wanted to have deployers so that we could build a wall that this thing would then drill through, so that when we're going through the nether, it can actually get rid of all the lava and I don't die while I'm driving it inside. And because it's going to be so small compared to my original tunnel bore, it feels like it's going to be a massive downgrade. And I've thought, is there a way I could maybe, like, once it's driven out of there, press a button to expand it and make it wider and longer? But I think that's just going to get massively overcomplicated, particularly if this thing is going to be a train. So I'm scrapping the idea. We're no longer going to have a giant tunnel bore, or a very small tunnel bore as it turns out, that's going to fit inside of our port. Instead, we're going to have to think of something else that we can build in there, and I do like the fact that it is a garage. And that doesn't mean that I don't want to improve this tunnel bore. Of course, this is a very boring tunnel bore. It's not particularly safe because when you do go through the nether or pockets of lava, it does all just splash all over the place and go behind it, which isn't ideal. But if I'm going to improve it, I'm going to make it bigger, not smaller, and I'm certainly not going to make it so it's so small that it fits within this area. So I need to think of something else that I can do with this, and while I'm thinking about that, I'm going to get on with some new jobs, and that first job I'm going to do is make the area around this base look a little bit more industrial, maybe put some fences around and things like that, and some working areas where we can have some other types of vehicles running around looking like they're actually doing something and getting some work done. And that might then inspire me to what we need to be able to be building in here for these vehicles to be dealing with. So that's exactly what I'm going to do now. And so a few hours later, we now have a giant compound with 6 completely individual buildings surrounding our main factory. We've got a big old tarmacked area for vehicles to be running around and plenty of space in all of these buildings to do things in. And those things, I've no idea what they're going to be just yet. But I have got some plans for this area, so we'll come to that at some point. One of the things I want is to be able to store my tunnel bore somewhere, and I didn't make any of the buildings big enough to be able to do that, because I'm very smart. So we might have to have an outside one maybe parked up here somewhere. I also want to have an opening into this compound somewhere or other and some roads going to a station where our train line is so that we can, well, get in easily. And I'm also thinking about what this yard could be for. At the moment, it looks quite military, I think, with the weird scorpion-looking building there and the barracks-looking building here and the jail-looking building there. Whilst it wasn't intentional, I was definitely taking some inspiration from my favourite games in my youth, Command & Conquer and Command & Conquer Red Alert. And whilst these buildings are not copies of those buildings from those games, they are relatively well inspired by those. But what I'm thinking mainly is to have a synchronised, almost choreographed vehicle network running around here doing things. Because we've got a big old sand factory here that produces all those things, I'd quite like to make that visually represented. I'd like some sort of big sucking machine that sucks the sand out of the desert. The sand then gets taken to one of these things, and then we can have things like forklift trucks and dumper trucks running around, taking the items to other areas, and then they can be processed there. Not really processed, of course, because we're all doing that inside of the factory. But in order to make it look like things are going on, then we could have a vehicle going backwards and forwards from that to this barracks building here, potentially doing something else, and then over here, and then there. And then eventually I want to have a big ramp coming up here with the finalized items actually being all looking like they're being sent into this building, which is, of course, where they're being stored. And speaking of this building, of course, my copper doors have weathered during this time. I quite like the colour. I do think it goes well with the orange, but I do want orange doors, which means I really do need an oxidizing station and a waxing station set up. So I guess the next point for this episode, we should ignore everything that we've done up here so far and worry about that another day. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss anything on this big old desert build. And we're going to be heading inside for now and working on our workshop. I've decided that I want these two areas here to be our storage system for all of the items I need regular access to. And then in other places that are around this area, we can squeeze in vaults and barrels and things in sort of like these little cubby holes where we can have all sorts of other things being stored. And then we can have access to those, probably through some sort of frogport system up at the top here. But I also need to be able to squeeze in a whole bunch of machines. We've got our press machine, of course, which does need tidying up a little bit, but I do need those copper machines in order to oxidize and weather copper, and I need all of the other machines that I like to use as well, like my mixers for making andesite and precision mechanisms and all that sort of good stuff. So I need to think about where we're going to be squeezing those into this factory area, and those are probably going to have to be squeezed into some relatively tight gaps because we don't have a massive amount of space. I'm also not going to worry about this transport hub right now. I have got some ideas for it, but keep those ideas in the comments coming so that we can definitely come up with something really exciting for this area. But for now, like I said, we're going to work on the workshop, adding in some more machines and getting my storage set up. And for that storage, I've got some good ideas. You see, currently, most of the things that we're producing in this world are ended up inside of ender chests because we've got the ender storage mod on here. And if we hop over to this industrial train, we can see that we're storing sand in this type of ender chest. And over here, we've got things like iron in this one and, well, flint in that one if we had any left. Over here, we've got more sand and clay. And basically, I want to be able to store all of the easy access materials in those types of ender chests and have them all accessible from inside of our little workshop underground basement area over here. So I'm going to need to build a whole bunch of those ender chests and find a way of getting them all connected to a storage system, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. And if we check out the ender storage mod, you can see these things are relatively easy to build. I've got loads of obsidian. I can make plenty of chests. Ender pearls we can get from my villagers. Blaze rods I've got plenty of. The only thing that's going to be slowing me down is wool, but I can make wool pretty easily thanks to my farm. You see, over at my farm area, we're automating all sorts of things that we're growing, including flax. And flax is very useful, if I can get over to it and show you. This one here. Because when you crush down or mill down flax, you get string, and of course you can make wool from string. So yes, even wool's not going to be a problem for us, even though there's not a sheep in sight on this Let's Play at the moment. Speaking of animals, I could really do with a location where we're going to be actually making animal stuff so we can have something better than pumpkin stew to eat every day. But yes, if I hop through this house and into this little barn here, past my doggies and my horse, and come and see these villagers, not only can I get all of my ender pearls from this chap, but I can also grab a whole bunch of flax from here, take that down these ladders into my underground basement workshop over here and just throw those into these crushing wheels here, at which point we're going to get a whole bunch of string as well as some flax seeds, which also gives us bone meal. And here it is, look. all coming through nice and quickly. So we can grab our string, hop back up the ladder, deposit the seeds inside of here, and then we can just craft a bunch of wool with all of that string. And now look, we've got nearly 500 wool. We've got exactly 500 wool. Amazing. Right, I just need a bunch of emeralds now to trade with this guy, so I'm going to do a little bit of trading with the other guys, which is exactly why we're farming all of this, so that I can trade with all of these, grab myself some ender pearls and make myself a whole bunch of ender chests. And so after just trading through all of these things these guys like once, I have now managed to amass this many emeralds, which means I can buy not many ender pearls, because you can only buy like 12 at once. But that's plenty to get us started. The other thing I'm going to need in order to make these ender chests is a whole bunch of dice, so we can color code them with the right color so that we can get the right item in the right ender chest. Unfortunately for me, I have been collecting a few dice over the course of this Let's Play, so I'm going to take a whole bunch of these things out of here, and then we can, basically get whatever we need from those. And I don't think there's anything else that I particularly need right now, except for a little bit of honey in order to make our waxing machine, although I think I may already have some honey over at the other area, because I definitely don't have any in here. And yes, I do. I have 12 pieces of honeycomb right here, and I've also got a few more dyes in there as well, which could come in useful. Excellent. Let's make a big old storage system and give these doors a quick scrape while I'm here. My goodness me, all of these green doors. I do kind of like it, actually. I do like the green door look. But they're going orange. They got a match. Jeez. And the other buildings need doors on as well. None of them got doors. So for a workshop then, I've made a list of all the things that I want to add, including smelting, washing, haunting, smoking, mixing, wet mixing, hot mixing, oxidizing, waxing, grinding, crushing, precision mechanisms, sawing, casing makers, slicing, sanding, and crafting. So just a few things then, and we're going to start obviously with our smelters, washers, haunters, and smokers, which we're going to be squeezing into this little area here. I'm not going to worry about the storage system too much just yet, although we will link everything up to that eventually. But before we do that, I kind of want to get a few of these things in place so that I've actually got machines to craft the things that I need to make the storage system. For our fan machine, we're going to be using these catalysts to make life a little bit easier for us, which I've already prepared, so I've just got to set up a system in here to do that. Which of course means that I'm probably going to need some chain drive along the back for power, and then we're going to need some fans on here, and seeing as though we've got a bit of space, we might as well have 5 rather than 4 and double up on something. In fact, we could probably squeeze in the whole lot in here actually. And then if we go through this wall here, we should be able to find oh geez, no, that's the staircase. Oh geez, I know there's power around there somewhere. Maybe I did a little bit further forward in this bit. There it is. I knew we had power. So let's just get this diverted over to where we want it, which is going to be relatively simple to do just by adding a little bit of chain drive here. Then we can throw in a vertical gearbox up there, flip that around, which means we aren't going to be able to have that there, and then we can go up there. However, I believe we can actually stick all of this in the wall because there's nothing on the other side there. So actually what we're going to do is extend our chain drive here to there, flip that one around, and then we can go like that, and then that means we can have another fan there. Excellent. It's sucking me forward. Okay, we need to make those go in the other direction then. So let's just throw a vertical gearbox there, stick that fan back on there. No, I haven't finished. Dad, stop it. No, jeez. And then, of course, we need to snazzify all of that. Oh, no, I can't snazzify that. I can snazzify this, though. Oh, look, it's so snazzy. And now it's stopped working. Why has it stopped working? Oh, because I didn't do that one. There we go. Very snazzy. Excellent. So for our catalyst, we're going to have 2 smelters, 2 washers, 2 smokers, and then we'll just stick our little haunter at the end because there's not a great deal that we need to haunt. That means I need to put some clear ones in there. Click that one with a lava bucket, that one with a water bucket, and this one with a bit of netherrack. And now it's going to be very dangerous for me to try and get off this. I'm so smart. I think everything through before I do it. So let's just disconnect the power for now, and then, that's not going to cause us a problem. What we can do at this point here is have some belts running down, although we don't actually need belts because we can just run these things straight into funnels. So instead, we'll grab our industrial iron and we'll just fill up this space underneath that we don't need. It's pretty much dead space. And then we'll bring this out a couple more blocks like this. At the front, we're going to need some frame trim, which I've made look the same as the industrial iron blocks. And above those, we're going to need our draw controllers, which I need to craft a few more of. Behind those, we'll have our brass funnels going into those, which will filter to make sure that things can't go in unless they're finished. And of course, we actually need to get items onto here as well. And I'm going to do things a very bad way. I'm just going to dump tons of items directly down onto these little platforms here rather than having them on belts, which means I will end up potentially with a whole mountain of items just sat on my floor being washed or smelted, which can be particularly bad for lag. But I don't care in this particular scenario because it's all good. And then I can do that, and then we can have an input spot for our smelter, an input spot for our washer, an input spot for our smoker, and an input spot for our haunter. And so I remember what each of these things are. Let's just stick a little placard on the front like this, and then we can label these appropriately with the things that they're actually going to do, because it's not going to be easy to see what's going on behind there once this is all in place. Probably actually just want these things coming out into chests rather than going into a storage system for now, because this is just going to be happening piecemeal as I need to do it. So yes, we might not actually have storage set up for the things I want to smelt. So let's actually get rid of all of this stuff that I've just put in and just use the blocks of industrial iron instead, with some more chests at the front here to collect everything. No, you're in the wrong place, sir. You go there. But now I can't get in to put my funnels in, so we're going to need access to this from the side, so we're going to have to just dig through here for a second, make ourselves a way through into this. There we go. And now we can put the rest of these funnels on, and then we just need to filter those. And that's pretty much that little setup done. Although I suppose we could make this look a little bit more tidy by adding a little bit of stuff up there, and that sort of frames it all. Excellent. Let's get those filters done. For the filters, we're going to be using attribute filters, which means we just need to craft a bunch of these. Then we just need to set up the attribute filters, so I'm going to throw some stone in there and do can be smelted, and then I want that to be the opposite, so we can have an opposite attribute to the list, or we can do a deny list. But I think I'm going to go with the opposite attribute, so cannot be smelted. Tick that, but I can't get in anymore. Okay, we'll get rid of those for a second and try. Oh, geez. Okay, we're going to have to break some eggs to make this work. Let's put those on there. And for the next one, we want cannot be washed, so opposite for that one. And they can go on there. For these two, we need something that can be smoked. So let's throw ourselves a pork chop in there and do can be smoked. And we'll have that as an opposite as well, which can go on those two there. And then for our last one, we can use sand again and do can be haunted, opposite, tick, on there. Excellent. Now we can put all this back together again. Just like that. There we go. Now we can build this wall back up again, put all that back together, and then we just need to attach power, which means throwing that bit of chain drive back in there between those. And now this thing should be running. It should be safe. And if I throw a bunch of sand into that chest there, that should end up in this as glass pretty quickly. There we go. The rest of it would be nice. I put a stack in. There we go. So not that quick, but quick enough. We can tick the first thing off the list. Now we're going to be doing some mixing. And for that, we're going to need infinite amounts of lava and water and blaze burners and all sorts of other things as well. So let's designate a spot for that. And I guess we're going to be going down to our next floor. I'm going to tidy this up, make that look a bit nicer in a minute. But let's go down to the next floor and figure out where we're going to have these mixers. And perhaps we could squeeze them into these little gaps here. I don't know if there's quite enough room for that, so we might have to go down to the next floor again and maybe squeeze them into these spots here or along the back here. Maybe, oh gee, there's not actually that much space in all of this space that I've left. Well, I'll worry about that in a minute. Let me go get all of the things I need and then we'll build it. Okay, I've crafted myself a little ender tank so that we've got our infinite lava, and I'm thinking maybe actually we could just build it here against this wall. As long as we don't block off our space to this too much, I think this should be fine. This power's not actually doing anything other than being the twin of that one over there to make it look nice. So let's do that. And we're going to start off with the hot mixer, which is just a blaze burner with a basin and a mechanical mixer on top. We need to feed lava into the blaze burner somehow. And then rather than using a complicated system of belts and chutes and things to get the items into there, we're just literally going to do exactly what I did in my other workshop and just put a hopper on there with a chest and a hopper on there with a chest, and then we can feed in whatever we need on that side and then whatever we need on that side, and then we just need to get the items out. Much easier. To get the items out, we'll just use a couple of drains. They can go into a chest here, which means we just need a funnel on the back, and there we go. Apart from power, that's pretty much this setup, and of course, yes, we do need to get lava into there. And I'm wondering if I can just get this to actually output straight to it. I can. Ender storage for the win. Yes, if you spin this round, it automatically pushes the liquid out of there to anything that's adjacent to it that can accept it. And in this case, it's that. So that means I can actually just bury that behind that, turn that on, and now that's going to be constantly full of lava, and we don't need to worry about it. And if you're wondering where we're getting the lava from for this ender storage tank, well, very early on in this Let's Play, I went to the Nether and set up a permanent little lava source. So all we need to do then is get a little bit of power to this mixer, which will come round the back there like that. If we just do that and that, they're both going in the same direction. And then we can stick one of those on there, and that's not going to work. Okay, let's not do that then. Let's just use one of those. And then, of course, we just need to make everything look rather snazzy. Lovely. Oh, look at that hot mixer already working. So if I was to throw some iron nuggets in there and some andesite into there, that is going to get turned into andesite alloy, which doesn't need a hot mixer, but we can use it as that. But I also want a wet mixer for things like cardboard. And a wet mixer is exactly the same as that, but it needs water instead of lava, and it needs the water in the basin, not in the blaze burner. For the wet mixer, we don't need two different ingredients going in. We only need one, so we can actually put that right next to this one here. We'll throw that on there. We're going to do exactly the same thing, having a hopper and a chest feeding that. Of course, we need the mechanical mixer going in, and then we just need to get water into here. So let's craft ourselves another ender tank, but we're actually going to need two, because we need to fill one up with water and then use one to take the water out. So we need to basically reserve an area somewhere to take water out of an infinite water source and put it into one of these ender tanks. That also means we need to dye both of these the same things, and we're going to go blue, 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 and then blue, blue, blue. And then they're both linked together. I mean, we could just use a pump to pump infinite amounts of water into there rather than using the ender tanks, but I just want to kind of see if it's going to work. And it would be nice to always have an ender tank that's got infinite amounts of water in it. But let's just see. If I was to put this ender tank there and fill it full of water, there's nothing in the basin at the moment, but if I flick that round, yes, that works. Amazing. Right, I just need to figure out how I'm going to get an infinite supply of water into this ender tank then. Now, I wonder, we have an infinite amount of water right here in the sea next to us, although this area is not chunk loaded, whereas our factory will be, but I'm just wondering, if I threw that into there and then turned that on, is that going to automatically fill with water? No, it's not. Okay. In that case, then, we are going to need to bury this somewhere, and I think maybe if we did something like this, with the pipe coming up and out, we then locked those pipes with this copper casing so that we can remove that one and that one. We put the ender tank on there. We add some more copper casing here to make that look nice. Create our infinite water source behind this, but of course we don't have a pump on the pipe. So, okay, let's move the ender tank a block up like that, and then throw ourselves a pump underneath that like that. Now all we've got to do is get power to this pump. So I managed to get power by basically taking it through where we already had it in here, out through that wall. We're taking it through this chain conveyor here, chain drive, not chain conveyor, down this wall here and across here and into there, and now we've got an infinite source of water inside of our ender tank. That's never going to run out. And that means that our mixer now has an infinite amount of water being pumped into it. And now what I'm going to do is, just build this up on the other side. This mixer doesn't need anything in it at all. This is just going to be a bare mixer. Of course, it is going to need to look snazzy. Now all I need to do is just get the outputs from these mixers and do exactly the same thing that we've done here. And now we've got a wet mixer, a hot mixer, and a dry mixer. Excellent. Lots of mixing. Very nice. Can I just make it look a little bit tidier, perhaps? If I put that there, I can't get in that chest anymore, so that's a stupid idea. So instead, I'm going to come up the back like this. We'll bring a row of blocks across the top there, like this. We'll build another bit of wall out here like this, and we can all have this joined together in holy matrimony. No, just to look nice. And there we go. Apart from the fact that I've made it very difficult to get the items into the chest at the back, that, I don't like the look of that at all. It looks awful. Let's get rid of this side bit here. There's way too much going on there. Let's get rid of these stupid bits at the top here. Let's get rid of this stupid bit going across the top here. And instead of having these like this, I'm going to double these chests up so we can do twice as much on the output. And of course, this one here, it's going to be lopsided because I can't have a triple chest. I don't like it. In fact, if I turn the chest around, we can have double chests coming out this way. Now we just need an easy way to get the items into there. And again, if I smash these to bits, I can have these double chests coming out this way as well. Genius. There we go. That doesn't look too bad. I quite like it. So now we can tick that off the list. And before I do anything else, whoa, that's a lot of creepers in my yard. Oh, geez. Yeah, I'm just going to tidy this up slightly. And then we'll move on to something else. Ta-da! Our press system is complete, but I can't open the chest, so it's not complete. Oh, geez. Let's get rid of that there. Let's get some copycat slabs instead. And we'll run those invisibly across here. Though copycat slabs are so weird. And then we can colour those in. Wonderful. Now we can actually get into it. Lovely. And we can put our items in there and get them out of there, and they all should just get pressed nicely. So now we've got our press done, our smelty thing done, our mixer's done. What's next? Oxidizer and waxer. And realistically, we should have our sander, which is down here as part of that, because we're going to need to unwax things as well. So I've got to squeeze all of that into somewhere else. Where am I going to squeeze that? I mean, I could potentially... No, I don't think there's enough space there for it. Oh, geez. This basement doesn't lend itself to be a particularly good workshop. However, that said, what we do have is a whole bunch of buildings outside with nothing going on in them. So we could definitely 100% turn one of these buildings into a waxing machine. And I think this one could be just what we need. I mean, it's got plenty of room inside. This is going to be our copper vault place where we keep all of the copper and do copper things. That makes sense to me. My door's gone green. Stop it. Stop being green. So the first thing we're going to build in here is an oxidizer, and the way that's going to work is relatively simple. We need a belt going across an area a little bit like this, and on top of that we just need 3 spouts for the 3 stages of oxidization. And of course each one of these needs filling up with water, and I've got a plan. Because we don't have water here, we don't have pipes over here, and pumps are laggy. And so are pipes. So why don't we craft a bunch more tanks, colour them all in, to get plenty of water in each one. Oh, jeez, it's so hard to click on the little thing. And then we could do exactly what we did before by placing these tanks on top of these spouts, just like this. And then turning them all on just like this, and yes, it works. The spouts are now full of water. Incredible. Then we just need to tidy this up a little bit, have an input point and an output point, throw a double chest on there for the input, a double chest on there for the output, stick on a couple of funnels, and now all we need is power, which is going to be tricky because all of our power is over the other side of this area, over in there. And we'll take it from over here, since though it's already over here. Just do a little bit of smashy along here. Throw ourselves a gearbox on there, and then just bring this along. Ow. Over through there. And then we just need to do a little bit of digging to get ourselves through to our new little workshop area, which should hopefully be in pretty much a straight line from where we were. We should start seeing the foundation. There it is. There is the foundation of the building that we're going to. Let's see if we can find the corner of our building. Get to the front of it if we can. There we found the tarmac again. So it should be just about up here. Huh. Ah, there we go. I have found where we need to bring power in. Excellent. And there we go. We now have power in here. We can put that back there, throw a gearbox on there, and that's going in the wrong direction. But it doesn't actually matter because we can have this as our input instead of that one, which means this entire thing is going right to left instead of left to... Oh, jeez. I coloured that in without colouring those in. Oh, jeez. Yes, like I say, it's going to go from right to left instead of left to right, but that really doesn't matter, although I would like it to go from right to left, so all I'm going to do is come down into here and break that and put in another gearbox. There we go. Now it's going in the right direction. So if I was to grab myself some copper that's not waxed, for instance this cut copper here, and throw that into there, that should then go through being oxidized, because this is an oxidizing machine and not a waxing machine. Can I put waxed things in there? No, they just go straight through. Okay, that's good to know. But of course, I don't need to be oxidizing things for this particular area because we just want things in the pure raw copper form but waxed. So I need a waxer. And that's exactly why I needed my honey, because we can turn that honey into a honeycomb block, and I'm going to make 3 of them. And that's all my honey in the world. And now what we're going to do is make 3 waxing machines, because I'm feeling like I want to make 3 waxing machines. So let's just add a little bit of belt over here like this. I'm feeling that this was not the optimal placement for this particular little farm that I'm making. So let's just bring these back this way a little bit and then shorten it from this side a little bit. Throw on a little bit here and a little bit here. Snazzify the belts. And this time we need deployers. So we just pop those on there like that. Give them a spin round. And I've realized I actually only want 2 of these because that's going to make things difficult for the input and output, and I also need space behind this to actually add power. Can I color these in? No. Oh, sad news. But anyway, these can have one of those. No, not 3, mate. You only need 1. Greedy deployer. There we go. 1 of those each. Then we just need an input chest and an output chest. A couple of funnels on there, a couple of funnels on there. We'll throw a bit of chain drive there. Have a bit of shaft coming this way. A gearbox there. It's going in the wrong direction. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? That makes perfect sense. What if instead then we did a couple of gearboxes there, bit of that there, and then gearboxes is still going the wrong way. Okay, forget that then. We'll go back to having that chain drive there. Bring this down here. And instead we're going to throw on 2 gearboxes. Now that's going in the correct direction. And now what we can do is just attach this chain drive to these deployers like that. Make sure that I absolutely snazzify everything that there is to be snazzy around here. There we go, very snazzy. And now if I get my unwaxed cut copper and throw that into there, they're going to come out and get waxed. Amazing. And these honey blocks will never run out because science, or the fact that, you know, this mod with this create add-ons a little bit cheaty. But it's, you know, it's good. I've got a waxing machine now and a squirting machine. That means the only other machine I need in here is an unwaxer, otherwise known as a sander, which can also be used for your rose quartz and things. My rose quartz? Yeah, your rose quartz, mate. We just need these mechanical grindstones and we just need to squeeze this in as well. And I'm thinking what I'm actually going to do is perhaps have this sort of over here, which might seem odd to be in the middle of the room, but I'm thinking we just have this little area here for our production, and then that leaves us all of this space for some copper storage. We'll have the input there, we'll have the output there, we'll have our drain there with that on top there, another drain there, another drain there, an input chest there, an output chest there, a couple of funnels, and then we just need to get power to this, which we can do pretty easily, just bringing that along here like this, and then putting one of those on there like that. But I can't do that because that needs powering as well, and this is where these things are really awkward, because there's no little knobble on the other side to add power on that to attach it to that, and these things need to both be running. Why they designed it like this, I don't know, but they did, because they're annoying. I mean, we could potentially do that and then bring power into this under the floor, which could work. But I don't know if they're going in the same direction. I'm not sure if it's going to work. But let's try. Let's smash all of this to bits here. Bring that down there. Bring that across there like that. Bring those there like that. They're now powered. And if I put in some of my waxed cut copper, that's not going to do anything at all. Perhaps it's going in the wrong direction, or it's perhaps because they're not going in opposite directions. So we'll figure it out. We'll put a gearbox in, see if that makes any difference. It did not. It just sent the stuff back the other way. So it was going in the right direction. So yes, it is the fact that these things are not going in opposite directions. So what I'm actually going to do is spin this bottom one around. That means I can have a couple of cogwheels up the back rather than at the front getting in our way, and that means I just need to route power underneath this to get them into those cogwheels. So a little bit of shaft on there, a little bit of shaft there, stick a gearbox on there, and there we go. Now we are unwaxing the copper that we've just waxed. Marvelous. And with just a little bit of snazzification later, it all looks rather wonderful. Nice. But I want that waxed. Let's put it back in there quick. So now that we've got our waxing machine, I can go and smash all of my doors to bits. What I tell you about going a funny color? Stupid door. This one and this one. We can hop back into this building over here, throw these into the waxing machine, and there we go. We now have waxed copper doors. But I'm also going to need a few more copper doors for the other buildings, so let's get these waxed as well. And then we can go add all of these to our buildings. So we'll have one on this building. Lovely. Excellent. We'll put the ones back on these ones over here. One there, one on here, and of course one on there. But we also need one on this building over here like this. Obviously, that building doesn't have a doorway in it. Neither does that one there. That creeper doesn't look like he needs a door very much, and neither does that one. But this one needs 2 doors because of the way I've built it. So actually, what we're going to do is going to throw a door down there like that and a door down there like that. And hopefully they'll... Oh, gee, no, that didn't work at all. I need these to, like, meet in the middle. What if I did that one there and that one there? There we go. Now we've got sort of... Yeah, there we go. It's different, but it works. Lovely. Excellent. Hello, spider. So now all I need to do in this building is build a little copper storage system, and that'll just be basically a whole bunch of storage drawers, which we need to craft up a bunch so that I can put in all of my different types of copper. And looking at copper, there's a whole bunch of different types. That's going to be a lot of storage drawers, or is it? And so just a few minutes later, we now have walls of copper things. We've even got another row ready for some other things to go in here, and all these are the waxed variants because there's absolutely no point in storing the unwaxed variants because, well, I prefer to build with the wax variants. And that then brings me to this. I've got these copper blocks or these copper casings, and I might as well make all of this look copper snazzy, seeing though this is the copper room. So let's do that. Snazify the copper. There we go. Very snazzy. We need to get rid of those bits on there so we can snazify that copper there and that bit. We should probably get rid of those so that we can snazify those. Lovely. Oh yes, it looks a whole bunch more snazzy now. And now you can really tell that this is the snazzy copper room. I don't like this. I think I'm going to bring this wall out this way a bit so that gets blocked off properly, and I think I'm going to extend this down here as well just so that looks more intentional. I still don't like it actually. No, so I'm going to take this underground another block. There we go, that looks better. And now I just need to build up this wall, and I guess I can do that just like this. There we go, that wall is now done. Let's throw another lantern on there. We might as well throw one on there as well. Get rid of that one there. We can actually have that one above the doorway, which is now off to one side, but that doesn't matter. But I am going to just move that. There we go. Now it's in the middle. And that means our copper room is complete. And so is this video. So if you want to see what happens next with this big old industrial area, then make sure to tune in to the next one. And make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, because we'll be advancing my workshop further, building some really cool machines that are going to be working around this area in some form of very, very exciting sand-sucking machine. So make sure you don't miss that one.